Are you ready to do this, Caleb?
I am ready, Krypton. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot tonight is Caleb Albers.
What's up?
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 129. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, FordhamNerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by, relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Caleb, it's been a little while. Welcome back to the Fortress of Nerditude. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad, not too bad. What about you?
I'm doing well. So what's been going on lately? What's going on over at the All Bros podcast? What's going on in your life? How's your wife? What's going on?
Well, with the All Bros podcast, it's just been complete and utter madness. We never know what we're going to be doing like week to week. We have a general idea, but it just kind of makes itself into what it wants to be, and we just kind of roll with it. Me and Rose, we've been doing this for not as long as you have. We're in our 60s with episodes.
Nice.
Yeah. We just did a 2-part Avengers Endgame breakdown, and that was a whole lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, other than that, work's been good. Been finding a lot of fun treasures in the garbage that I've been picking up. The missus is good, still putting up with my stuff.
Nice.
And
nice. Are you watching anything recently? Are you binging anything? You playing any video games? What else is going on?
I've been a little busy, so I haven't been able to play a whole lot. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is just a blast.
Uh-huh.
I play on with my younger brother Bronson, and he is the worst person to have on in your posse because he's one of those shoot 'em up guys, and I'm not. I'm just kind of a leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, and anyone that even comes close to us, he shoots at and then gets us into a big old posse war, and it's a nightmare.
Wow. I have that game, and it's one I think I didn't really have any intentions of getting into it. I actually only got it because I got the PS4 Pro bundle that had it, because that one was the quieter PS4 Pro that had just been released. But as I've let the idea sit a while, I may give it a try. I've got to finish Kingdom Hearts 2 that I'm playing with the boys, which is taking a while to play. I've got to be honest. It's slowly coming along. And then they want to do Kingdom Hearts 3. I still have to play Spider-Man that I haven't got to yet. So I think after Spider-Man, I may give Red Dead Redemption 2 a try.
Grew up with like Western movies. It's a good game. The story's been amazing so far. The gameplay's awesome. I'm kind of a completionist, so I've been doing like all the side missions before getting to the story, and that's a chore all on its own. But yeah, it's a great game.
Well, that's cool. Anything else going on?
Not really. This weekend I helped my dad and people in my ward, or my old ward. I don't live in that ward anymore. We moved a garage, and that was an experience. Like watching an entire building move is just unsettling.
Really?
Yeah. So
what was the reason behind moving the garage?
So my dad's wanting to put an addition on the house, on his house, and
Okay.
so he needed the driveway clear and sold both of the garages to some of the guys down, or some people in the ward down the street. And so we hauled it over there, and like I said,
So is your dad
unsettling.
not going to have a garage anymore?
So he has the rental property next door that he uses for his garage now, but he's going to be building an addition, and it's going to have a garage in it.
Okay, I got you. Well, that's interesting. That's exciting, man. My weekend was nowhere near as kind of different as that. Since it was Mother's Day, I used the pit barrel cooker and I smoked up a lot of meat. I smoked about 18 pounds of pulled pork, and then I smoked up 3 racks of ribs. And so we had ribs and pulled pork for dinner on Mother's Day, little corn on the cob, little Hawaiian rolls, and just kind of had a nice good meal. I was kind of by my big last hurrah with the pit barrel cooker for the next couple of weeks, because I'm going to actually be loaning my pit barrel cooker to my former boss, who's going to be catering a wedding, and he's doing ribs for this wedding. And so I'm going to be loaning it to him. So I wanted to kind of smoke up a whole bunch of meat that I kind of had kind of on the back burner to do, so to speak. And I did that. I tried a new recipe with the ribs, and it turned out fantastic, and they looked really good. And so I did that. I also ordered a Traeger this weekend.
Oh, geez.
So I'm going to have my pit barrel cooker, and I'm going to have a Traeger. So, yeah, I'm doubling down. I don't know what it is, but I've been on this kick for the last year and a half, where I've been watching all these barbecuing videos and watching pit masters and reading their blogs or, competition results and whatnot. And I've been experimenting with flavors and trying to get a really good competition rib kind of recipe and look. And I'm getting real close to having something I think I could maybe try to take to a local competition or something. So yeah, I did a lot of that this weekend.
Gonna steal Arby's slogan, Stapleton's, you got the meats.
That's right. I'm trying to think what else is going on. I mean, it was kind of a crazy weekend. I had my motorcycle club meeting, and we are preparing for our big Memorial Day event, which is the Fallen Patriot Ride. And it's an event that we raise money for a charity, Warriors for Freedom. They help out veterans and family members of veterans who are struggling with PTSD, disabilities, both physical, mental, emotional, whatever. And we put on this big ride. It's Memorial Day weekend. We remember the vets. We go out to the Veterans Cemetery here. It's a really good event. And so, Super Friends, if you're interested, even if you're not in the area, even if you don't ride, you can go to fallenpatriotride.com, and there is a donate button. So you can go on there and you can donate some money to the cause if you're interested. It is a charity. We do not keep any of that money. 100% of that goes towards the Warriors for Freedom Foundation. And so anyway, we're kind of planning that, getting ready. That's in 2 weeks. By the time this actually releases, it'll be just a little over a week away. Let's see. Other than that, man, taking my kids to swim lessons, they're still progressing on that front. And I've still been watching Friday Night Lights. I'm in the final season of that. I've also got a thing where I've got a list of shows that I want to get to, but then lately I've been starting to get some of the nostalgia feeling, I want to go back and rewatch that show. And even worse than that, I'm having that with a card game that I used to play. I used to play a Game of Thrones living card game, and I haven't played that in about 4 years. A second edition of the game came out, and I didn't really want to invest in it at the time because I'd moved houses and it was a long drive. But I'm really missing the game and the fun I had playing it and the competitiveness. So I'm trying to see if there's anyone up in my region of the world that plays it that's a reasonable distance, because I would love to kind of start playing that game again. So, Yeah, the nostalgia for past things I've played or watched has hit me real hard, and I can't really explain why.
I think it's just going around. It's hitting me pretty hard too. I've gone back and started watching The Incredible Hulk again on Hulu with Lou Ferrigno.
Really?
And it holds up, dude. It holds up real
Really?
good.
Yeah. Does it? 80s shows, man. Now, but I will tell you though, I can never not get enough of the sad Hulk music from that show. I love it. I love just that piece of music. Like, to me, I hear that, I'm like, oh, Bruce Banner's sad. Incredible Hulk is sad. Every single time.
That's blasphemy, dude. It
Love it.
holds up. It will forever hold up.
I don't know, Caleb. You're kind of a fanboy for the Hulk.
Let me live in denial, dude.
All right. You're right. It does hold up. It is absolutely the best show that's ever been shown on TV.
Thanks. I'm going to wipe these tears away now.
100%. Yeah. You're good, man. Hold it together. You're fine. I promise. No, seriously. I did love that show as a kid too. I don't know. It's one of those shows where, like, I don't know if I could go back and rewatch it now. It's kind of like the Dukes of Hazzard. Like, if I see one of those on occasionally, like, I'd watch it for maybe 10, 15 minutes, like, oh, yeah. But, like, I don't think I could go back and rewatch, like, the whole series. It'd be like, nah. You know, it has its place in time and in my memory and nostalgia. And,
yeah, with that show, it's definitely a one episode here and there, but it's not one that I could continually watch either, so I feel you there.
Yeah, it's like, who wants to go back and watch all of Gilligan's Island straight through from beginning to end and, binge it? All right, well, what do you say, Caleb? Should we kill some Bothans?
Oh, let's just massacre them, dude.
Done and done.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Caleb, we are into Rebel Intelligence, and you are the guest host, so what do you have for me this week?
Oh, first off, me being a little bit of a Potterhead, not as much as most people, but Pottermore and WB, or Warner Brothers, are collaborating on a new website that it's like a Wizarding World website. So they're just kind of mixing what they had with Pottermore and just kind of expounding on that a little bit more. And
so is this just basically trying to bring the two, like the, I was going to say Stranger Things, but that's not right. The Fantastic Beasts stuff. So, like, they're all kind of in one place? Is that all this is?
So, this is, like, a little confusing for me, because Pottermore kind of takes in everything in the Harry Potter world. So, you can take, like, a house test, which I've done, figure out what wand you have, figure out what your Patronus is, which I've tried to retcon mine, but can't. But I think Warner Brothers is just...
What house are you?
Ravenclaw. I'm super happy with that.
Okay.
I forget what my wand is, and my Patronus is a cat, and I hate cats.
Like lions are also considered cats, right?
I know. I
Tigers are cats.
I'm actually, like, phobically afraid of cats. Like, it's bad.
So, like, you didn't get, like, a tiger or a lion or a panther. You got, like, a house cat.
Full-blown house cat. Like, I think it was a blue tabby.
I
was so mad. So mad.
I think I took the which house are you quiz, and I was Gryffindor. But I also kind of felt like you could kind of manipulate it. Like, you could kind of figure out, like, oh, this answer would be this, or this answer would be this house. But I tried to answer it as honestly as I could. But I don't know that I ever did the which wand and which Patronus. Maybe that was something they added after I did the house quiz.
I know Rose, my co-host, he took his, and he was, like, swearing to the grave that he was going to be Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. He's like, no way I'm going to be Slytherin. But he took the test and ended up getting Hufflepuff. And he was like, "This website's stupid."
You're right. I hate this thing.
But Potter. So I think Warner Brothers.
So that's interesting that they're
Yeah,
putting
I
them
don't
together.
know what Warner Brothers is going to add because Pottermore also acted as a site where you could buy ebooks just to get further into the wizarding lore. Yeah, ebooks, audiobooks, they sold it all, and all of it was written by J.K. Rowling. So I don't know exactly what Warner Brothers is going to add. I think they're just going to make it a more, like a bigger thing instead of Pottermore being. I think you have to like sign up to be part of Pottermore, but I think they're going to make it more like an online community thing.
Interesting. Well, I'll definitely have to kind of take a look at that. Maybe I'll go back and figure out what my Patronus and my
I'll trade you no matter
wand
what
is.
else you get.
What if I get like a bunny or something? You'd
don't
still
care.
trade?
I would still trade. You can get a squirrel
Nice.
for all I care.
Nice. All right, so I don't know if you're a big Star Trek guy or not, but they announced a little while ago that they're going to do a Star Trek series based on Jean-Luc Picard, which was the captain of the Next Generation series. And that's like, and Patrick Stewart signed on to do this, which is just amazing because I love Patrick Stewart. I think he probably is the best captain of all the captains. And I know that may be controversial because some people are still going to say, Kirk is the best and give it to William Shatner. But I really, really love Jean-Luc Picard and Patrick Stewart's portrayal of him. So we've gotten a little more details on the series that's coming up. First of all, they said it's not going to be a portrayal of Picard in his older years, like having all these adventures across the stars, kind of still kind of out there, just going for it. That it's going to actually be more of a kind of a cerebral approach. It's going to be more of a kind of a character study of his emeritus years. They're going to allow him to be, obviously much older than he was during Next Generation. It's going to be slower. It's going to be more meditative. Hearing that, actually, I'm not all opposed to that idea because I think it's going to give us a chance to kind of see and maybe explore some parts of the Star Trek universe of what happens when, people in Starfleet age and what do they do and kind of how their approach towards the universe is in their later years versus we see a lot of captains in their younger years going off for adventures and wanting to explore new things. And, I don't know. I kind of like this idea. Are you much of a Star Trek guy? Do you watch much of that?
So my grandpa was a big Star Trek or big Trekkie. That was something I could never get into just because he would show me all the really old shows and it was just a lot to take in as a young kid. And then as I grew older, just could never get into it. I like the movies or the newer movies that came out. I like them. They're not like my favorite, but I think they're good. But yeah, I couldn't get into the lore.
I'd highly recommend if you're ever considering watching a Star Trek series, go to Next Generation, start there. I mean, it starts in the mid-ish, late 80s, like 87, I think, is when the show started. So, admittedly, it's going to look kind of, retro, but not like the original series as filmed in the late 60s. It's great. There's some really great characters, and it's a good ensemble cast, but definitely Picard is just this amazing captain. But anyway, new Star Trek series coming down the pipe. I mean, we still have Star Trek Discovery that's going on, but don't exactly know when the Picard series is going to hit. But I got to say, it's probably within the next year or so, is my guess. Next year and a half. So, anywho, that's one of the things I've got. What else do you got for me, Caleb?
So Netflix is opening up a little bit about their lists of their most popular shows. That's something that they've not really gotten into a whole lot before. They don't give out like the ratings or the viewership of these different shows. So that's kind of why some of our favorite shows have been getting just kind of dropped all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, even though it has like a big following. And yeah, so Netflix has started releasing those a little bit. It's still in talks of how they're going to show this on Netflix, but a lot of their like biggest shows or the biggest things that people have watched have been like newer shows, like Stranger Things is for one. One of their more popular ones right now is a documentary, like a Discovery kind of documentary about planets. I think it's called Planet Earth or something like that.
Oh, yeah, Planet Earth. Yeah, the David Attenborough, the BBC one. Man, I remember they did a season or two of that a while back on Blu-ray. Like, man, it was fantastic and beautifully shot stuff. What's interesting to me about the Netflix thing is that if this is in the UK, they're kind of showing some of the information about. That means to me that eventually, yes, we're going to see something like that here in the States. But it also is going to give some sort of inclination, I think, into how they're going to kind of use their algorithm or how things are going to work to make like recommendations. Like, they're really good at saying like, hey, you watch this, so you may also like this because it's similar, or, similar actors, themes, whatever. But I think it'll also be interesting to say like, hey, here's the top 10 things that are being shown right now. And it may give viewers a chance to see what other people are watching that they may not normally be recommended to watch, because it doesn't usually fall kind of into their pre-designed kind of algorithm of things similar to what you're already watching.
Yeah, I like Netflix's algorithm right now. They've done pretty good at getting me to watch stuff that, like in our recommendations for you list, they've done pretty good. They got me to watch Community. They got me to watch Parks and Rec.
Oh, so good. Oh, yes.
And just different shows like that. I think the one that I'm just not ready to pull the trigger on yet is Arrested Development. They've been requesting that one hard.
You have to. Those first 3 seasons. Oh, okay. Good. Let me know what happens with that.
Yeah, I got a whole lot of shows to catch up on.
Yes, you do. Okay, so this week, for me, I fanboy out over a good number of things, but something happened this last week that made me fanboy harder than I've fanboyed in quite a while. There was a new teaser trailer for the Final Fantasy VII remake that was dropped just a few days ago, and let me tell you, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see more information on this, to know the details. This is a game that came out in 1997. I loved it. I've played it through multiple times. It is a fantastic story. I just love it. It definitely has nostalgia. But to see it in like a high-def, high-res, reimagining of this, it's just, gosh, it's so good. Square Enix dropped the trailer. They said that they're going to announce more details in June, which says to me that we're going to hear a lot more about this at E3. It's been 4 years since the original trailer dropped at E3. Square Enix they've basically kind of said that there was some things going on. Some of the development house that was working on it wasn't kind of working right, so they brought it all in-house. And now they're doing this, they've reshown it. They're going to give us some more information. I also heard somewhere that they're going to do some sort of concert series with Final Fantasy VII music, and they've done that before in the past, and then shortly after that they've released it. So maybe we're within a year of seeing this game actually hit the market. So I don't know. It's something that I just cannot wait for. Like, seriously, like this is like one of my things that I'm like super anticipating.
So did you play like the first Final Fantasy?
No. So Final Fantasies, they don't continue for like one game to the next game. They're not sequels. They only did that once with 10 and 10-2. But 1 and 2 aren't related at all. It's just a different story, and they just numerically numbered them that way. Final Fantasy 1 came out on the original Nintendo, and then Final Fantasy II came out in Japan. Final Fantasy III came out in Japan, but was released here in the States as Final Fantasy II. And then it gets kind of all weird. So basically in the States, we had Final Fantasy II, which was really 3. And then we got Final Fantasy VII, which came out in 97. And then 7, 8, 9, 10, 10-2. 11 was the online multiplayer one. 12, and then 13, I think 14 was another online one, and then 15. That's kind of where we're at in the current crop. I've played Final Fantasies 7, 8, 10, 10-2, half of 12. I haven't gotten around to a few of the others.
And you don't need to play the previous ones, right?
Nope. The only time you'd have to do that is if you were going to play 10-2, you'd have to play 10 first. That was the only time they did kind of like a continuing storyline. So like you could jump in and play Final Fantasy 7, having never played 6. It's not going to matter.
Huh. That's been my issue with Final Fantasy, because I keep seeing 7 and like 10 and or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, well, I don't want to go back and play 10 other games.
Yeah.
I love stories. Like that's my thing with video games. It's story. So if I have to go back and play a game, like that was with Red Dead Redemption 2, my buddy Rose, he played the first one and told me that if you haven't played the first one, you could still know what's going on in the second one. And so that's what got me to actually with Skyrim.
Yeah.
I play that a lot. That one's just kind of a create your own adventure. So it's just, I like the stories and being able to follow a story through like a series. And it's good to know that I don't need to do that with Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Final Fantasies are all about story. I mean, they're really, really, really good narratives. I wouldn't say go back and play 7 right now, because you could wait maybe a year and a half-ish, and you could play this remake in a lot better graphics than the original 3D polygonal, renderings from 1997. I mean, that's a pretty old game now. I mean, it's like 22 years. But if you wanted to play a game that's been kind of remastered, it's on the PS4, Final Fantasy X would be a great game to pick up. It's got a great story. I mean, gosh, the story alone, just like I think about it and the nostalgia hits me. It's like, oh, I want that game. I want to play that game just because I love this story so much. But it has been kind of HD remastered. It is on the PS4. So you could do that and you'd be fine. You could pick up one of the newer games. I know a lot of people liked 15, but I don't hear the like passion and devotion and love for it as like 10 and 7, 8, 9, 12 even. So I'd say Final Fantasy X. If you've never played one, it's a good story. It doesn't tie in. The first one doesn't have any other tie-ins. If you'd want to play the next one that does actually have a continuation, you could, but you could skip it and also not miss much. So
Interesting.
My bit of advice.
Very interesting.
Add it to your list of things it'll take you forever to get to, and eventually, maybe you'll check that box.
Fantastic. I'm going to die with a list.
So me too. There's no way I'm getting out of this life with my list all checked off. There's just no way.
I still need to go hit up God of War too.
Oh gosh, seriously, yes, do that.
I've watched people play through it, and I know like the entire story, but it looks so much fun. I have to. So I think that's on my list after Red Dead.
Yep, I hear you. All right, what else you got for me, Caleb?
All right, so being I'm not really a film student, but a student of life.
Aficionado? A lover?
A film lover. I love seeing things redone or just made better or whatever, like fan films. And recently we got a Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi Death Star duel just remake that was so cool.
Fantastic, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So good. Like the only thing that I had issues with, because I'm assuming, like obviously with fan stuff you have to kind of give them a little leeway with effects and everything. The only real complaint that I had is that they probably should have buffed up the Darth Vader mask a little bit, made it a little shinier. But other than that, it was almost perfect.
Yeah, it was really good. I liked how they tried to incorporate as many shots from the original film as they could, and the dialogue. That was really, really good. I also liked how they brought in some of the dialogue, kind of was almost like a Force ghost audio from like episode 3, when they're having their duel. So it kind of is almost like a flashback to the previous duel they had when he was, tragically injured.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely. Awesome. Like I know, like noticed. I don't know about you, but I was raised with the first, or with episode 1, 2, and 3 being my first introduction to Star Wars. I'm assuming yours was 4, 5, and 6, right?
Oh yeah, it was 4, 5, and 6. I saw them in the theaters. Yeah.
So 1, 2, and 3 was my first introduction.
Big difference here.
I
yeah.
had my first introduction to Star Wars was these big, just fantastical battles with the lightsabers doing jumps and flips and these force pushes and everything. And then when I actually got around to seeing 4, 5, and 6, I was like, these duels are a little dull. Especially the one with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. I was like, what? Like, they were fighting on a lava planet. Like, that was like the most epic part of that movie. And then this one just seems kind of like, But I think if this were, like, I could kind of justify it with the more dull lightsaber battles with Luke, because he wasn't trained in like fighting like that. So I think seeing
Sure,
Darth Vader
yeah.
and Obi-Wan have one of those fantastical battles would have fit so well into them, and then continue on with just the kind of dullish kind of styled battles with Luke, because I don't think even in Force Awakens the lightsaber battles aren't as visually amazing as they were in the prequels.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you kind of bring that up, right? Because the original Star Wars: A New Hope came out in May 25th, 1977, and like I could just rattle that off. I just have that in my brain. But those were filmed, like a year or two before, and the technical aspect that was used was a process called rotoscoping, and they literally had these, basically like fencing foils on the end of the lightsaber hilt, and so they had to kind of fight with all of that, and then someone had to go in post and like trace and draw every time where that was, and put in this effect to make the lightsaber be there, make it glow, the snap hiss, all that was done in post, right? So I really wonder if, because of the time and the technology that was used, they were told that they had to keep the swordplay to kind of a minimum, because it was going to be too hard if it was like this big, long, drawn-out thing. Then in in Empire Strikes Back, we get a much better duel between Luke and Vader, and then, of course, we get a much longer, drawn-out duel in Return of the Jedi that was definitely probably the best of the 3 originals. But nowhere do you ever see Force pushes. You see Force lightning in Return of the Jedi, but you don't see Force pushes. You don't see, kind of the throw the lightsaber, call it back while keeping it snapped on, any of that kind of stuff. That all really came in your generation with the prequel stuff, where they really expanded upon that and added that. And so for me, the original fights are always going to be, the original fights, and like I'm good with that. But then they added to that. It's interesting hearing from your perspective of seeing the prequels first. Then you get to the point you're like, yeah, what the heck? Like, Darth Vader's kind of a wimp now. I mean, he was all bad a minute ago.
Yeah, the only reason that I was able to justify the switch, because like with me, when I see a movie and there's just continuity errors, especially like with that, where it's new movies to old movies.
Yeah.
I try to justify them the best way that I can, and the way that I justified it to myself is that Darth Vader is going to go all out against Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan was actually a trained fighter, but he's not going to go all out against someone like Luke who wasn't trained that way. So he's just going to be a little more like just parrying and just kind of pushing him back and forth and that kind of like entertaining a child.
Yeah, just toying with him a little bit, yeah. Well, I definitely agree. This fan film, you can go see it. It's on YouTube. I think it's by Fix It in Post. Is that correct? I think that's the name of the people that did it.
I believe so.
Super Friends, go out and see this. It's like 6 minutes long. It's kind of clipped into the scenes of the movie. It's definitely worth watching.
Oh yeah, I highly recommend.
Okay, so the last thing I've got. We are at the time of the year where TV shows are being, either canceled or renewed, and because they're getting ready to go to New York with all the other broadcasters and basically say, like, here's our fall lineup for advertisers, so that advertisers can kind of figure out, okay, with here's where we want to slot in shows, and this show brings in this many million viewers, da-da-da-da-da. So real quick, because there is a lot, I'm going to kind of run down the list of what's being renewed for some of the big broadcast networks. So CBS, The Big Bang Theory is actually ending. Young Sheldon was renewed. Survivor renewed. NCIS renewed. Criminal Minds, God Friended Me, both renewed. FAM was canceled. The Code is kind of on the fence right now. Mom, Bull, FBI, SEAL Team, SWAT, Hawaii Five-0, all those are renewed. Life in Pieces is canceled, and I'm super sad about that because that's the funny show. NCIS New Orleans, 60 Minutes, Amazing Race, Blue Bloods, NCIS Los Angeles, Magna P.I., MacGyver, Man with a Plan, Madam Secretary, 48 Hours, all renewed. The Red Line, still kind of on the fence. Murphy Brown has been canceled after one season of a renewal. The Neighborhood was renewed. Happy Together was canceled, and Ransom was renewed. Over on Fox, 911 was renewed. Empire renewed. Residence, The Simpsons, Orville, Family Guy, Bob's Burger, all renewed. The Passage was canceled. Star canceled. The Four was renewed. Lethal Weapon canceled. Last Man Standing was renewed. Gotham is ending. Rel was canceled. The Simpsons is ranked on this list twice. I don't know why. But The Simpsons is renewed a second time, I guess. The Masked Singer renewed. Cool Kids canceled. Proven Innocent canceled. And The Gifted canceled. Over on ABC, American Housewife, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., A Million Little Things, American Idol, Blackish, Bless This Mess, Dancing with the Stars, all renewed. For the People was canceled. Fresh Off the Boat renewed. Grey's Anatomy renewed. How to Get Away with Murder renewed. Modern Family renewed, but it's in its final season. Schooled, Single Parents, Station, all renewed. Speechless canceled. Splitting Up Together canceled. The Bachelor, The Connors renewed. The Fix canceled. Goldberg's renewed. The Good Doctor renewed. Kids Are All Right canceled. The Rookie renewed. Whiskey Cavalier canceled. And then basically everything on the CW is renewed unless it's ending, which is kind of crazy. Like CW's not canceling anything. So All Americans, Charmed, In the Dark, The Flash, Black Lightning, Riverdale, Supergirls, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Supernatural, Legacies, Arrow, Jane the up to Arrow's all renewed. Jane the Virgin's ending. Roswell, New Mexico, Whose Line's It Anyway, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Dynasty, Master of Illusions, iZombie, and The 100, all renewed. And then iZombie and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend are ending. The last one here, over on NBC, Brooklyn Nine-Nine renewed. AP Bio on the fence. This Is Us, most likely going to be renewed. Will and Grace, The Voice, Ellen's Game of Games, Law & Order SVU, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, The Good Place, Blacklist, Superstore, Blind Spot, Good Girls, Manifest, New Amsterdam, all renewed. Enemy Within, maybe. Village, maybe. I Feel Bad, Midnight Texas canceled, and Abby's, maybe. It's kind of on the fence. So quick rundown of all the things that are going on the big network broadcast, networks for renewals and ending. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that list because there's a gazillion things on TV. But it looks like to me, Caleb, most of the things are getting renewed. It's just a few on each network that are being canceled if they didn't have a lot of viewership, or unless you're the CW, apparently you just don't cancel anything, and maybe how many people watch, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. There was like the only shocker on this list for me, and I hate to say this being the Marvel nerd that I am, was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being renewed. Like, I thought the show was going to die.
Yeah. So
But
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. only
lives
was
on.
averaging 3.9 million views an episode, but it lives on. And I think, if I'm taking a guess, something on ABC with that low, there's some other ones that just barely were a little higher than that, but like Speechless had 3.1 million and it got canceled. Splitting Up Together got 3.8 and that got canceled. And so, The Fix 5.1 actually had more viewers per episode than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and it got canceled. Same thing with The Kids Are All Right, 4.8. So, I wonder if the rationale... Whiskey Cavalier had 6.1 million. So there's other shows that had higher viewership per episode that got canceled, but I wonder if it's part of the overall Disney kind of Marvel plan to keep something on their TV, and that's why it's going to stay, even though it's only 3.9 million viewers watch it every week.
That's a pretty good theory.
Hard to say.
Not a lot of people watch stuff on ABC.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're talking about, because, some shows get a lot of people watching, and then others, not as much. Grey's Anatomy, that's on its 17th season, or coming up on its 17th season, and it's still averaging 10 million viewers an episode. Mm-hmm. That's crazy after 17 seasons for a scripted show.
Yeah, that's...
But there's other shows that definitely are doing well. Big Bang Theory has almost 17 million viewers an episode, and it's in its last season. But that's a lot of people watching that show. Anyway, that was the last thing I had for Rebel Intelligence. You're out on the Rebel Intelligence, right?
I sure am.
So typically right now we would roll over into our question of the week and our answers. Here's the thing. I totally spaced it and forgot to put out our question of the week call and ask for answers from the Super Friends. It happens rarely. It does happen. I just totally forgot it. Caleb, though, since you're here, I'll just ask you real quick. Do you have a favorite made-up or silly holiday?
I don't really participate in those silly holidays. I think the only one that I feel I've ever participated, but I was kind of forced into it because I was in a math class on Pi Day. Other than that, I've never gotten into it.
But that's not a bad holiday though to have to celebrate, right?
Yeah. Or Mario Day, or March 10th. That's my birthday, so I guess I get to celebrate that every year.
Oh, there you go. Nice. Nice. Well, Super Friends, next week, I'll make sure we get the call out and I will not fall down on the job. So when we have our discussion here, we will definitely make sure we ask you the question of the week and get your answers. Caleb, every week we ask our Super Friends to help us out. What can they do to help us out?
Well, they could help out by reminding you to put up a question of the week. Or...
that's a one way. Yeah.
Or they can go the iTunes route and give a star rating, preferably a 5 one, because 5 fingers, 5 stars.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. You could also tell a friend. It was suggested by Delvin Cox a couple episodes ago to just pick up your friends' phones and automatically subscribe them to the phone. Now, I don't recommend necessarily doing that, but I mean, it's not going to hurt either. So,
Yeah, if you don't do
Go
it
ahead
to a
and do
friend, at least do
that.
it to a spouse. Or
There you go,
significant
right?
other.
they'll never know. Why do I have 600 episodes of how it was made? I don't get that. Yeah. It can't hurt. It can't hurt, Super Friends. Yeah. So let me ask you this, Caleb. So I was kind of going over that list just a minute ago in Rebel Intelligence of all the TV shows that are renewed and canceled, and it was making me think of, some of my favorite canceled shows that got canceled way too early. And I thought it would be kind of fun if we could talk about some of our favorite, maybe our top 5 favorite shows that were canceled early. We'll just kind of do a back and forth thing, start at number 5 and work our way up to our favorite show. Give a little bit of detail about maybe the show or why you loved it. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. So you go ahead and you kick us off. What is your like in your top 5? Like, what's your number 5 show that was canceled too early?
Okay, so my number 5 is a show that I think was on a network, but don't quote me on that. But I ended up seeing it on Netflix, and it is based off of a movie starring Bradley Cooper, and that show is called Limitless.
Oh yeah, I remember the movie. So was the show just like kind of like a retread of the movie, or was it like a continuation?
It was a continuation. So it's this drug comes out called NZT, and it's supposed to give people access to 100% of their brain, and then that way they can recall basically anything that they've ever experienced. So all of their senses are heightened. They remember all of this stuff, and it's just kind of like a high for them. In the movie, Bradley Cooper was the one that like took this drug and did stuff with it. I haven't seen the movie, but in this show, he is actually in this show. I think he's actually one of the producers of the show. So he stars in it. He's only in a couple episodes. He makes it a point to not be such a huge part of the show. Kind of wants it to be its own thing. But he's kind of the guy that is in charge of this drug that because this drug, once you take it, the withdrawal from it is like rough. It like hurts your brain. And if you take much, it ends up being like you overdose on this drug and then you die. It causes like major brain issues and whatnot. But Bradley Cooper's character has a cure for this, and so the main character, I'm spacing on his name because I haven't seen the show in a really long time. But yeah, the main.
How many seasons did this show go?
I think it only had 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's this guy kind of in a deadbeat job, wants to want be a musician, ends up getting access to this drug from one of his junkie friends and gets a job with the FBI, and then they give him like this temporary cure so he can take the drug as much as once without it having any adverse side effects on him. And it was just kind of like one of those basic FBI shows, and then him trying to struggle with wanting to use it for personal use and having to use it with for his job, the FBI, because they restricted his access to it to only 1 a day, and that drug only lasts 12 hours. So, yeah,
interesting. So Limitless is your number 5.
Number 5. I feel it was ended way too early, and they ended it on a cliffhanger too. So that really peeved me off.
All right, my number 5 is a show called Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Shortened version is just Studio 60. This is a show by Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin famously for writing and directing and running The West Wing. Also a bunch of other stuff like Sports Night, The Newsroom over on HBO. And this show basically the setting was it's kind of like an SNL type of show, but it's showing kind of I'd say kind of like the background drama, like all the, kind of what goes on behind the scenes of trying to get a weekly sketch show on the air. It's kind of cool because it's kind of like pulling back the curtain and seeing kind of like what goes on behind the curtains at Studio 60 at Saturday Night Live. But it was a drama show. It was, it was meant to be dramatic and, to follow the stories of these individuals, of the actors playing it, of like, the people working on the show, the guys that are running the show. It brought back Bradley Whitford, who had previously been on The West Wing, which an Aaron Sorkin show, Matthew Perry, who'd done some guest starring on that show, and then some other people who have worked around Aaron Sorkin before. Aaron Sorkin seems to kind of keep, some similar people. The problem was, though, is that the show only went one season, and it also was running at the same time a little show called 30 Rock was on the air. And 30 Rock also was about a sketch comedy show, also was about the people kind of behind the show running it. It was a half-hour comedy, whereas Studio 60 was an hour drama. And one was very serious, the other one is extremely hysterical, with Tina Fey, who was a previous SNL star, and Alec Baldwin. 30 Rock did bang up numbers and, did a whole bunch of seasons. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip only went one. I love it because I love Aaron Sorkin. I love his writing. I love his style of television. I thought it had a lot of really edgy kind of things that it was kind of covering and discussing, but ultimately it only went the one season and then it went to its grave. For me, that's in my top 5. Because of my love of Aaron Sorkin, and the show was good as well, but canceled too soon. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. What do you got at number 4? Number 4.
Number 4 is kind of a weird with how it's canceled. So my number 4 is Duck Dynasty.
Really? Okay.
I love this show. I love a wholehearted show. Yes, it has its goofs throughout most of it, but it always has like a heartwarming ending, and I appreciate that to no end. But yeah, so Duck Dynasty. So the family, the Robertsons, actually were the ones that pulled back and said, "Hey, we're not going to do this as a full show anymore. We'll do specials here and there for like big events and whatnot," but they just kind of called it quits on the overall show. And I feel this one was just pulled back too early because I love the hijinks that they get into. It's kind of like it's basically, if you were to ask a redneck, what would you do with a boatload of money? Like that's what this show is. And like it has like that family aspect to it that I just love. Like I said, just hilarious hijinks throughout the entire show, and then it always ends off with a prayer with the family getting together for something, and I just love that. And I think that in the world that we live in today, I think the world could use a little bit more of that.
All right. Duck Dynasty for your number 4. Okay. My number 4 is a show called Jericho. This debuted in 2006. Basically, it's kind of the story of a family and kind of like a little group in a small town of Jericho, Kansas, that survives a nuclear attack that hit like 23 major cities, like all at the same time in the United States. And it literally follows like this little group of people as they're trying to find a way to kind of like exist after the attack and how to like continue going on. It was a drama. It it had a kind of a really cool kind of opening. It's a really cool kind of premise. It went one season, and then it got canceled. And there was a huge kind of write-in campaign on the part of the fans. So basically, at the end of the first season, there's this whole long story that's kind of used in this. They're talking about the Battle of the Bulge, where General Anthony McAuliffe was, asked if they would, basically surrender, and he gave him back a one-word response, and he said nuts, you're crazy or whatever. So when the show got canceled, the fans did this big, huge write-in campaign, and they also sent over 20 tons of nuts to CBS's headquarters, referencing kind of the final scene, basically saying, like, you're crazy for canceling this. They ended up bringing the show back, and all the peanuts and whatever that was, sent there were donated to charity. But I think it's crazy that, like, they used that, from, World War II, the Battle of the Bulge, in their show, and then also became like the rallying cry for fans of the series. They brought Jericho back for a second season, and this was right around kind of the time of the strike. Its ratings dropped even more than the first season, and so it was pretty much dead after that. It's kind of that classic, like the original Star Trek, the original series, where it got canceled after 2 seasons, and then the fans wrote in, and they got a third season that didn't kind of even go a full season. So it has a similar feel there, but Jericho it was just a fun show as far as kind of like a post-apocalyptic world. And the reality is, about 4 years later, a show kind of did a post-apocalyptic world, but with zombies, called The Walking Dead, that really seemed to pick up. I just think this show was a little too early for its time, when most of the TV watching public wasn't ready for this type of a show. But definitely a good show, and definitely worth going and watching if you can find it on Netflix or Hulu or something.
I like those post-apocalyptic shows a lot. I can't get into Walking Dead because I'm a big baby.
So know this with The Walking Dead, it's more about the people that survive and less about the zombies.
Okay. I can't get past the first episode.
But it does get a little gruesome. It does get a little gruesome at times, yes.
Oh, I know. My younger brother, Coy, he's big into that, and so I've actually walked in on him during those gruesome parts, and it's rough.
Yep, I hear you. All right, what do you got for number 3, Caleb?
Oh, well, I don't think I could ever have a top 5 without bringing Marvel into it. So my number 3 is Daredevil. And I was going to have Punisher in here somewhere too, but I feel with Netflix, I feel they ended the Punisher series perfectly. Punisher's not someone that has like really big stories. He's just a big part of like the Defender stories, where he's helps Daredevil out or helps Iron Fist or Luke Cage. So I feel that they ended Punisher fairly well. Otherwise, he would have been in my top 3 or top 5. But Daredevil is probably my second favorite superhero, just under Hulk. My first introduction to him was the Ben Affleck movie, Daredevil. And as cool of a movie as that is, it does hold a kind of a soft spot in my heart because it introduced me to Daredevil. And then I started getting into Daredevil's comics and just fell in love with the character. I feel he has countless stories that they could have adapted. They did really well with adapting some of the stories with Elektra. They did really well with Bullseye. Bullseye actually didn't in the 3rd season, or Bullseye was in the 3rd season, but Bullseye was also not a very established character or like a villain. He didn't have in-depth backstory, and I loved the backstory that they gave him in season 3, and I wanted to explore that more. And I'm so bummed out that we're not going to get that bullseye again, unless Marvel pulls a rabbit out of their hat and gets everyone back.
I'm telling you, it's coming back to Disney Plus. The only reason it was canceled is so that Disney can get
I sure hope so,
get it over on their
I'm in
service.
love
I'm
with
telling
Charlie
you.
Cox as Daredevil, and
Oh, he's such a good guy.
so good. One of my favorite stories about him is in Infinity War when the Defenders were actually in talks to be in Infinity War for like that little week or
Right.
two, and they were saying, "Oh, if we do that, we're going to recast." And Charlie Cox was out there telling people like, "I will fight whoever you cast as Daredevil for that spot."
Right. Yeah. It would have been cool to see them in it, but I'm kind of glad they didn't, only because that movie was already so
Oh, yeah.
packed.
They made a
But-
good call.
Cool. That's a good number 3. Daredevil. Yeah, that's good number 3, Daredevil. Okay. My number 3, Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. This ran for 2 seasons. It basically was a mid-season replacement in 2008, and then by 2009 it was canceled. It basically follows the story of Terminator 2 Judgment Day and basically kind of ignores Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines and anything else that followed it. But it was about Sarah with a kind of like early teenage version of John, and kind of what they were doing. It took some liberties, it took some twists with some of the things that were done. They send back another Terminator that's actually protecting them, and it's not Arnold. It was Summer Glau. I'm a big fan of hers. The problem is that it had like 8.3 million, I think, viewers in that kind of replacement season, 2007, 2008. I mean, that's during kind of like right around the writer's strike. But then in 2009, when it came back for its second season, it only pulled in 3.6 million viewers an episode. So it took a big drop off. And because of that, it got canceled. It ended on this massive cliffhanger, leaving a whole bunch of stuff unresolved. It had Lena Headey, who goes on to play Cersei in Game of Thrones as Sarah Connor, and she was just bad A. I want to go back and rewatch this series because I did very much enjoy it, and I love all things Terminator. But at the same time, like, just knowing that like there's not going to be any conclusive end, it's going to hit that cliffhanger. That's going to be hard. I don't know if I could go back and watch it just because of that.
Was that show canon, or was it just kind of their own deal?
If you ask James Cameron, he's going to tell you the only things that are Cameron are Terminator and Terminator 2. And he is coming back to make another Terminator movie and basically saying that all the others aren't canon. So I'm going to guess he would say this is not canon. It's worth a watch. It really is. It is a good show. It's just know that it's going to end prematurely, and you'll
Fantastic.
be fine. That's my number 3. What do you have in your number 2? Now we're getting to the nitty gritty where it gets harder and harder to choose.
Yeah, this one I struggled with. It was between this and Daredevil for number 2, but I ended up going with this show. Probably for the same reasons I chose Duck Dynasty. Just a wholehearted, good family show, and that is Life in Pieces.
Oh, gosh, you're killing me. I love that show.
I know. So my mom introduced it to me when it was in their second season, and after that, I was just hooked because I saw like my relationship with my wife in the show, in everyone, and it was just so like all the characters were super relatable. All The sibling relationship was another thing that was super relatable. The youngest was always getting picked on by the older two, and that was my family. My youngest brother Bronson was the butt of all of our jokes, or of all of our. We'd make him do stuff that we weren't 100% certain was going to be safe, and yeah, like I said, it's just one of those good, wholehearted family shows, and I'm so sad that they canceled it. The third season was just amazing, and I think me and my wife binge watched it over a weekend while we were sick.
Yeah, the fourth season's on TV right now, but after this season it's done. But yeah, the thing I always like about this show is that it is really funny, relatable kind of family humor that I think a lot of people could find something they could relate to, but it's also that very like awkward, cringe worthy type of humor, like similar to stuff you would see in The Office. Like The Office was so good to me because it's some things that like would just happen would make you cringe, and that was like funny. Life in Pieces has a good amount of that too. I mean, some of the stuff that the one brother-in-law Tim says just literally makes me cry with laughter because it's so awkward and cringy, but I love that. I love that.
I like to think that I'm one of the main, like in the main family, or what is it, the Shorts?
Yeah, the Shorts.
I like to think that I'm like the older brother, but I think 9 times out of 10 I'm Tim.
I feel like I'm Tim a lot of the time as well. Oh gosh, that's too good. That's just too good. All right, my number 2, and this is a really good one, is Arrested Development. It aired in 2003 and it was canceled by 2006, originally at least. It follows the Bluth family. They're this dysfunctional family that used to be really wealthy. The dad ends up being in like a lot of shady deals and ends up going to prison. Ron Howard is the executive producer, and he's also like the narrator of the show. It just follows the one son, Michael Bluth, trying to raise his son, George Michael, and also trying to like not get mixed up in the crazy like dysfunctionality of his siblings and his mom and his dad. And no matter how much he tries to get away from that, he always kind of gets sucked back in and pulled back into it. The first 3 seasons are just comedy gold. I mean, just ridiculously funny stuff. And then in 2011, Netflix agreed to license new episodes, and it brought back a 4th season. It was filmed in a way where not all the cast could be together, so it felt very disjointed. It was not the same feeling of the show. Eventually that got recut, so it did kind of have the same feel as the original 3 seasons, and I hear it's a lot better. They also commissioned a 5th season, which premiered first half last year, and the second half came out just maybe a month or 2 ago. But it has been canceled after that. They're saying they're not going to do any more. So it originally was canceled too soon. It kind of got jerked around. Fox, didn't kind of know where to slot it in. Eventually put it in like a Friday night slot and, moving it around a bunch. And it got canceled. And then, 5-ish years later, it came back to do a season that wasn't very well received. And then it had a number of years off. And then it came back for a final season, kind of split over 2. It is comedy gold. It is definitely worth watching. Those first 3 seasons, I've got the DVDs. I can pop any of those in at any given time and just laugh myself silly. It's so good. Add that to your list, Caleb.
I know.
Netflix is telling you for a reason.
I'm definitely going to have to jump on that bandwagon.
Oh, so good. So good.
I told my mom I wouldn't give in to peer pressure, but here I am.
Right? Come on, man. It's just one little episode. First one's free.
That's what you said about Community, too, and I had to binge that entire show.
But the question is, Caleb, was I wrong?
That's besides the point.
Yeah, there we go. All right, what is your number one? What's your granddaddy of them all?
All right, my number one is might be a controversial one. So my number one is Agent Carter. It is the
Ooh.
show that was, it was the show that was following Peggy Carter's story after Steve Rogers went down into the ice, and it shows her having to go to this home, not like getting an apartment in this building where it was only single women, and they had like all these rules and stuff that Peggy never followed. It had the younger Howard Stark, the one that was in Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yep.
So it had him in it for a few episodes here and there, and then it just followed Peggy's story, and then it eventually incorporated Howard's butler, Jarvis, who I don't think this is a spoiler, but for Endgame, but just in case it is, just ignore me for a second. He was in Endgame.
Yeah.
He was Jarvis. That actor actually played Jarvis in the Agent Carter TV show.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so it was awesome. So the first season, because I think it only had two. Yeah, it only had two. So the first season was about Peggy just trying to go back to the SSR and try to, because like she's not in a war environment anymore. The war's ended. So she's being treated like a secretary again, which she does not like in the slightest. So she's doing all these like little sides to kind of help the SSR and help these men, and she's getting like no credit for it. So she's just doing her best in this and just pushing through. And then they end on a cliffhanger where they reveal that there was a vial of Captain America's blood, and so the second season is all about her trying to go and get that and hold on to it. And it's kind of her way of protecting what's left of Steve. And
yeah.
So like the first season was all about like just action and her being a complete bad A. The second season was more her being a little bit more vulnerable, like emotion-wise, and having to deal with all this stuff. Like she's not a trained anything, but he's helping her on these missions, and he's being put in danger, and he has his own family to take care of, and it's Peggy just kind of realizing that that's something that she wanted with Steve, but couldn't get. So it's really, really heartbreaking to see that stuff. And they were going to continue on with more nuclear warfare kind of stuff, and her trying to put a stop to that. And I wish that they would have, because I loved the show, and I was so sad to hear that it got canceled. And I felt it was a great addition to the MCU, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Okay, my number one. It's a show that only had one season, all the way back to 2002. Created by writer and director Joss Whedon, Firefly. Firefly is my number one, hands down, no competition, super easy for me. This show is great because it's written by Joss Whedon, who understands how to write ensemble casts. It's acted perfectly. It's cast perfectly. But basically, it's about a group of people who, some of them fought like on the losing side of a civil war, and they decided that after the Civil War, they're not going to go with the alliance, which is kind of the fusion of like the United States and the China governments. And and they were part of the the Browncoats, the independents that were fighting against the Alliance. And they decide that they're going to go out on their own. They're going to go to kind of the fringes of space, the kind of the far outsides, and try to make a living. But it is literally a Western cowboy kind of themed show out in space. And it addressed political, moral, ethical problems of the day. But it was in the future. There was no faster than light travel. It was always like gravity drive. So like they had to take jobs in order to make money just to keep the engines going so they could try to get from one place to another. So it had a real feel of like we're doing this because if we don't do this, we die. We have to take this job because if we don't, we're not going to have enough fuel to get to the next place. We're not going to be able to get food. And they're just living on the real ragged edge of space. The show, unfortunately, only has 14 episodes. Only 11 of them aired on TV. It was on Fox. Fox kind of jerked it around and inevitably put it on Friday nights and didn't really promote it very well. And only 11 of the 14 episodes actually aired. In order to see the other 3, you had to have purchased on DVD, which thankfully, the DVD sales of Firefly were so strong, and there was fan support campaigns that in 2005 they made a movie called Serenity, which did pretty good business for the franchise. It's something that I know Joss Whedon said he'd love to go back and do more of if they could really get the support and get the actors and actresses back. But eventually the Firefly franchise went into comics and a role-playing game. But this is a show that I tell you, Super Friends, if you have not seen this show, that's okay. You have time to fix this. Go out and watch it. It is funny. It's dramatic. It's got, touching stories and relatable characters. But most important, it's got Nathan Fillion in it. And it's Nathan Fillion and all his Nathan Fillion-esque. And you just can't not help but root for his character of Captain Malcolm Reynolds. It's just amazing. So, Firefly is my number 1. Caleb, have you seen Firefly?
I have not. My wife Brielle has watched it before, but I've caught glimpses of it and it looks really cool. But yeah, she never explained it like that. Nathan Fillion, Space Cowboy. Yeah, I'm sold.
Nathan Fillion, Space Cowboy. Any other show that I've told you to go ahead and watch, put all those on the back burner, put Firefly to number 1. Put that as your number 1. Everything else can kick back. So, all the others we were just talking about. Arrested Development and, that Netflix is pushing on you. No. Put that on the back burner. Firefly.
You know that half of
You will thank me, I promise.
You know half of the stuff on my list is because of you.
You can't go wrong, I promise. So those are our top 5. Super Friends, we want to hear from you. What is just tell us your favorite. What is your favorite show that was canceled way too early, in your opinion, and why? And we will read those answers next week, and I promise I will remember. Caleb won't let me forget, and we'll make sure that those get read next week. Caleb, where can the Super Friends find you? Where can they get the All Bros podcast? Where are you on social media?
They can find us pretty much anywhere, like the standard iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Spotify, all those fun places. We also release all of our episodes on YouTube. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/The All Bros, or our handle on Twitter is @The All Bros. Our email is theallbroschannel@gmail.com, or we got a website. It's one of those free ones with the really long URL, so I made a tiny URL. So our website is tinyurl.com/The All Bros. No punctuation in that at all. And yeah. And I think that's the website's the best way to check out the episode art, which I do all by myself. Handcraft.
I know how that goes. Yep.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. Trying to come up with an idea for each and every movie that we do, but yeah, that's all the places you can find us if you're so inclined.
Definitely should do that. Go check out the All Bros podcast. Well, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.